Hello, good morning, and welcome to Dome Theory. It's Bobby Manning. It's NEEMA DJAVADZADEH, and we are talking NBA draft. We are talking free agency. Everything's about to get underway in the NBA world right now. We're going to welcome you in for some questions. This is a rare, actual live event, Dome Theory. Normally I'm doing more topical stuff here, but it is a big day in the NBA world, and I didn't do much draft preview on this show. I did a little Celtics-oriented second-round thing, which people probably cared more or less about depending on how into the 45th pick you were. But it was an interesting draft. NEEMA did a ton of research on it, and this was one, NEEMA, where when I was looking up and down on it, it was like every single year it gets more and more like this, but 18, 19, 18, 19, just these guys who are a couple years into their NBA career, so much upside that they have to see, and who knows who's going to turn out here and who doesn't. But your Rockets had the number 2 pick, and the first thing I was thinking as I looked at that pick was, I love Mobley. I love his upside. I think he's one of the guys that could, if he meets his potential, become one of those transformative wing big hybrids. But you go Jalen Green, and you liked it. I think a lot of people liked it.
Yeah.
But that's one where I think you might look back on it and say, oh, Mobley was right there.
Bobby, I'm going to be honest. I don't care if Mobley was right there. We're going to be bad for the next couple of years. That's just how
NEEMA covers the Rockets, by the way, on his
for anybody who doesn't know, I cover the Rockets. Realistically, the Rockets are going to be bad for the next few years. I've talked to a couple of Rockets fans that are arguing we're probably going to be in the play-in next year. If we're in the play-in next year, it means one of Kevin Porter Jr. Yeah, it means one of KPJ, Jalen Green, or Christian Wood are all-stars or borderline all-stars. Even though, Christian Wood was technically an all-star snub last year, although he got hurt. I think if he would have stayed healthy, he was averaging 25 and 12 before injury, so maybe he's an all-star. But I think it means one of Kevin Porter Jr. or Jalen Green kind of took a leap forward, or Christian Wood is more of an impact player, less of a stats player. He was very much like a stats player, not really impacting the game much last year.
So take me inside Green Mobley, that trade-off there, because I know Green's scoring potential is through the roof. He's a little bit smaller, I think. He's on the smaller side for a guard, but he had that G League experience. Still got to put some things together in terms of vision and defense at this level, but that scoring is probably what you're looking for there. You want him to become a scoring title level player who's just leading your team. And yeah, you've seen plenty of teams build to that point guard spot. Portland, Golden State. You can do it, and you can win a championship. Kyrie to some degree in Cleveland. No, he's got good size at 6'6". So what's the trade-off here in your mind between Green and Mobley?
Yeah, so Green's going to probably be our long-term 2 guard. I think the 2 position is one of the most important positions on the team, or just having a scorer, first of all, having somebody who can fulfill that role. So the Rockets are very much in build for 5 year from now mode. So what they're trying to do right now is basically place dudes on the roster that will be on the team competing 5 years from now. Jalen Green is the perfect guy to lead a team. First of all, the mentality's there. You don't really get that a lot with a lot of players. This dude is a workhorse. And in every single one of his interviews so far with the Rockets, everything he talks about is, I want to be good on defense. I want to be a better playmaker. He said he wants to be all defensive his rookie season. Don't think that happens, but, who knows? Maybe he at least is a very good defender. I think he's very focused on that end, even though those are him, that and playmaking are his 2 biggest knocks. Those are the 2 things that he talks about the most in terms of things he wants to be able to do next year. I'm very excited for that. I think on top of everything, you look at Green and you kind of see, you got to remember who Tillman Fertitta is whenever you think about roster moves. This is a dude who's going to put butts in seats. The Rockets suck last year. And the Rockets also don't have a good history of, selling out, even with Harden. We did not do a good job at, getting people in the stadium. Jalen Green is one of those guys that he does that. I don't think I mean, you look at the vibe in Houston right now, it's amazing. I mean, you got him, Josh Christopher, Kevin Porter Jr., Christian Wood, KJ Martin, Jayshawn Tate, all of these guys who are very like high energy guys, very personable, love to, they're just fun. And that's the one thing is I think if you're going to be bad for a few years, get very high potential guys and have a lot of fun. Mobley's fun to watch for sure. And, he's a very good player. I'm not saying he's not. And I do think, maybe a year or two down the line, or not a year or two, but like 5-6 years down the line, maybe we look at Green and Mobley and we say, oh, Mobley's probably the better player. But, I mean, Green's also, in my opinion, he's going to have the same shot of being, a transcendent kind of player, an all-star year in, year out. I think Mobley will be too. So it's just kind of the trade-off of which one you prefer. I do think there is a big issue with Mobley with the Rockets camp. I don't know if you heard about this, but basically he refused to work out for the Rockets. He refused to have meetings for the Rockets. There's some like conspiracy theories a little bit, but it does make a little bit of sense. His dad apparently was the one who didn't want Mobley to go to Houston. His dad also coached at USC when Kevin Porter Jr. was there and got kicked out. So there might be a little bit of animosity between KPJ and the rest of the USC staff, and that probably leaked into the decision for Mobley as well. But I just think having Jalen Green on the roster, especially with the other two picks we made, like I think you maybe missed out on the best center in the draft, but you probably got the second best center in the draft, and you got arguably the best defender in the draft as well. And then also Josh Christopher, who's another one of those like the scorers, but he's also a lockdown defender when he wants to be. I'm happy about it. I just think maybe we got too much at once. So I'm very interested to kind of see what happens over the next couple of months with the Rockets, how the roster changes, because I'm looking at our roster right now and we got no shooters and we got a lot of wings who
you're a rebuilding team. This is just the ground floor. And it was a good spot for a team that had
for sure.
No
but
picks forever to bring in 4 guys.
You can't develop 20 dudes at once. That's the only thing. And so like you gotta still develop them within a system. Having 4 dudes who their whole game is ISO basketball.
Well, it is interesting because
it's not as like fluid as it should.
You didn't want to be in a position where you had to trade Wood. Like we got to get rid of him, and we got to just get whatever we can get for him. You kind of want to trade him at peak value and sell high. The question is with Mobley now is, do you want to like bring in a guy who's going to be that starting point on your team when you don't really have guys to set him up? You have Wall and all that kind of thing, but the Cavaliers are kind of in a better position. Like they're a little further down the road in the development of the young players to be able to facilitate growth for Mobley. You don't have any young. This is like
they have Garland, Sexton, Okoro, and Jared Allen.
And Allen, yep. So you got like a more seasoned group there. The Rockets are just starting in terms of their young players.
Yeah, I agree, but also
it always comes into it.
I agree, but also what is it? Like Sexton might be out. There's all the stuff with Sexton there. Kevin Love himself said Kevin Porter Jr. was the most talented player on that team. So,
Oh, let's continue to be drawn.
But
that was a great move by Houston. I told you that at the time.
Incredible move, yeah. And the thing is like, I think the Rockets are still just kind of waiting for the moment that like KPJ's bubble bursts. That dude's crazy, but I love him. But like, I think that Houston's the best place for him just because of John Lucas, and so and also Josh Christopher. He was a John Lucas guy.
Great staff.
There's a lot of relationships in Houston right now. I mean, Jalen Green and Josh Christopher played at Vegas Elite together. KJ and Josh Christopher played in high school together.
Can we talk about Sengun for a second?
Yeah, Sengun and Garuba played it overseas in like some of the international tournaments with each other.
Yeah, they were the 2 top guys in one of those tournaments out there.
And Garuba has been like MVP of tournaments since he was like 14 in Europe. So
I love Garuba. Did we see him when we went to that Real Madrid game?
Nah, he wasn't there yet. But Or he was there, but he was in the U16s.
Oh, okay. He was too young at that time.
Yeah,
so I love him. His defense is the real deal. Like I don't know
if you've been watching the Olympics, but whenever it was USA versus Spain, Gruba checked in and immediately went up to Kevin Durant and played pretty good defense on him. I mean, if he's going and checking Kevin Durant,
yeah,
Spain definitely has some trust in him. So Spain has some trust in him, so do I. So
yeah, for sure. And he was great in that game. He's been great in this whole tournament. And I love the fact that
he's a 6'8" Lou Dort.
And I love the fact that he's in the Olympics while getting drafted. I've never seen anything like that. Like they're like, yeah, he's getting picked, but he's over there playing and 12 hours ahead.
I do think if Spain loses to the USA in the next game, there's a good chance we see Garuba in the Summer League. It's about 6-day difference between the beginning of Summer League and after that game. So we'll see if he makes the trip over. I know Şengün's supposed to be in the Summer League, so that's very exciting. Yeah, Spain and USA tonight. I'm very excited for that.
Ooh, already? Oh, yeah. That's going to be great. We'll be watching that.
Knockout
agency. So everyone knows, I know we got a lot of Garden Report fans in here. We'll be live right around 6 o'clock when free agency gets started. We'll start to kick around free agency a little bit here. But for the Celtics people in the chat, I know they'll be interested in following number 16 forever. Obviously, it went to Oklahoma City in the Kemba deal. And then it goes to Houston for some picks and whatever. Oklahoma City pretty much just gave that pick up. Goes to Houston, and they get Şengün, who I know Kevin Pelton did a statistical analysis of the draft and said that Şengün was the best player just in terms of stats, which is interesting. Obviously, he was amazing in Turkey. I don't think there was anything that you could miss in terms of his skill set out there. The question is whether that skill set works in the NBA today. And I'm sort of surprised that there's so much love for this guy who did struggle to shoot, even though he tried it. Plays a very old school style of game. Who are the people left that play the way this guy does? Towns to some degree, really not even anymore. Cantor, just to
Sabonis,
Turkish name.
Sabonis is he's a comp that I've seen a lot.
All right, yeah. So you get Sabonis at 16. That would be great.
If that's what he ends up being, then that's pretty good. My worry is whether or not he ends up being the long-term 5, especially with Wood, because neither of them are really 5s and neither of them are really 4s. Şengün is cool. I like him a lot. He's
just be clear, Celtics fans are gonna be watching Şengün saying for the years to come.
Yeah, I've seen Al Jefferson as well, but Al Jefferson was 290 pounds. And Şengün's
so was Şengün, and
he's 245.
No,
he's 245.
He was 290 a couple years ago, and then he lost a ton of weight, I heard.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, but right now he's 245. A big part of how Al Jefferson played in the post was using his weight. He was able to just push around everybody. Şengün doesn't really do that. He's a little bit more fluid. The way he plays in the post is a little more like Luis Scola, where it's just counter after counter after counter after counter. I think that if he can get a good mid-range shot, maybe, be able to hit, let's say 30% from 3, that's all that we need. His shot looks good. It doesn't look horrible. I'm not crazy about his form because he kind of goes with both hands.
I think he was 19% from 3 last season.
Something like that. It wasn't very good. But I don't know.
He's in a good spot as the backup guy.
One thing that I like a lot, I was on Apollo Launchpad, if anybody listens to Rockets podcast, very good podcast with Lashard Binkley. I was on there yesterday with Don Knock, and I was talking about how Şengün straight up runs dudes off the floor. I mean, back when we had Capella and we'd go up against teams like Utah or Denver with Gobert and Jokic, Capella would run those dudes off the floor. I mean, you would see Jokic by the end of the second quarter. This was back when Jokic was fat, or fatter. If you go and watch some of those playoff games, or just some of those really competitive games between the Chris Paul Houston or Chris Paul Harden Rockets with Clint Capella. By the second quarter, Jokic is gassed because Capella's just sprinting up and down the floor. And he's able to beat almost every single big up and down the floor. That's the same thing as Şengün. I mean, he just runs the floor, and that's great, especially for a team like this where Every dude is fast as hell. Every dude is super athletic. We're going to be running in transition a lot.
That's what you got to do as a rebuilding team is just sprint your ass off, play some defense, and just try to hustle in the close games.
And Şengün fits that role. I'm worried a little bit about his defense, but I said yesterday I think you don't really need 5 dudes on a team that can play defense, maybe like 3.5. And so if you're able to hide him a little bit, if Wood can be that rim protector and you're able to hide Şengün a little bit, or if Wood becomes a good like weak side help defender, or even if KJ Martin can become a rim protector. I mean, we saw him block almost every single 7-footer in the league. But then I think, Şengün's going to be able to adapt a little bit more. But if you start forcing him to protect the rim, force him to play and drop, make him start switching and stuff like that, that's where I think he's going to start struggling. But I don't think he's going to start right off the bat. I don't know what the starting lineup is going to look like, especially because we got guys like John Wall, we got guys like Eric Gordon, who we just can't seem to get rid of.
Taco?
Do we want Taco? Yeah, maybe get Taco to protect the rim.
That seems like a good fit. I do see a lot of questions coming in the chat. We'll take those toward the tail end of this one. We're going to kick around a bunch of different topics before we get there. Obviously, free agency gets started today. I did a big East offseason preview last night. Well, it came out a couple weeks ago, but I updated it last night with everything that's happened so far. Obviously, there's been a bunch of shakeups in the East. Draft night, there was a ton of activity. The Hornets got better. The Wizards did different things. We'll talk about that Westbrook trade in a little bit. So if you want to check that out, go over to my Twitter account. I'm going to retweet that post. And it's part of my Patreon where I'm doing some NBA and Celtics coverage with deeper level analysis. We'll get some Q&As, some exclusive interviews, stuff like that. That's $5. You'll get these off-season previews and a bunch of other stuff that's going to be coming up the line right here. So it's also just a good way to support my NBA coverage here if you want to. And you like this show too, you can support this show. Get on iTunes, get on Spotify, do all those different things. I know you were talking about NEEMA when you came on here, the Lowry thing that's going on. Toronto just working on a sign and trade with the Heat. The Heat could maybe add DeMar DeRozan too. You had Butler, you had Bam, you have Hero. They'll probably bring back Robinson. So that's looking like a pretty good situation in terms of spacing, in terms of playmaking, and just in terms of gluing everything together next year. They're going to be much better if they have a team.
I don't know so much in terms of spacing. I mean, you put DeMar, Jimmy Butler, and Bam on the court, they're just going to be
when you have those three out there together.
I think if DeMar comes, he's going to understand it's more of like a bench backup point guard role. Or I say comes like I'm a Heat fan. But if he goes to Miami – Lowry, Hero, probably Robinson, Jimmy, and Bam with DeMar off the bench probably is what I'd assume they do. I don't think you start DeMar, Jimmy, and Bam together. Maybe you end games together, but starting them together is a little wild. You're not going to be able to get shots off. Both Jimmy Butler and like DeMar DeRozan are the two most reluctant three-point shooters I've ever seen outside of Ben Simmons. So it's not like neither of them can't hit it. They both like shot threes at some point of their career pretty well. I think they just like it's not in their game right now.
But they can throw Hero and Robinson. Lineups and mix it up a little bit.
Robinson helps. I'm very curious to see what Robinson gets. I don't think he should get that much money, but there's some people saying that they're going to get 21 million, 20 million, like 15 million for Robinson.
I think 16.
That's a lot.
It's not like the Knicks. The Knicks are kind of like the tone setters for these restricted free agents. Right?
Yeah, I think the Knicks should just trade for John Wall and call it a day.
I think the Knicks are going to be that team that floats an offer sheet. All of a sudden, the Pelicans are like, oh, crap, now we might have to keep Ball at a higher figure if we want to keep him. Maybe they float one to Robinson. I've seen the Knicks and Fournier. I wouldn't do Fournier. I'd do a Robinson because he is one of the best three-point shooters in the league. You'd be getting Fournier for his three-point shooting. So
I wouldn't do Fournier. I'd just trade for Eric Gordon, but that's a different –
yeah. No, but I think the Heat are going to be able to keep everyone together here, which is good. This is kind of the best bet with how Butler's age is panning out. It's interesting because Butler's kind of on a different age path than Bam is here. Bam's got a longer way to go, but they kind of have to rush us along a little bit for Butler's sake. because I don't know how many years he's going to have left at an elite level here.
Yeah, I mean, Miami's going to be on some interesting stuff. I do think Lowry to Miami is a pretty done deal. I do think it's going to be for Goran Dragic too. I don't like Goran Dragic is going to be like
And Precious,
probably Kezi Okpala as well.
Oh my God, Toronto! My Raptors are just going to be so excited after a year of Baines and Boucher to get a guy like Precious. Like the bar is so low up there in Toronto.
In terms of big men, yeah. And now they have Precious, Pascal, they have Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby.
So yeah, what are the Raptors doing? Yeah,
they're just getting some long ass dudes who can play defense and see what Nick Nurse can do.
I don't love them passing on Suggs.
Did you hear about what happened with Suggs?
No.
So apparently, according to like some Toronto insider on Reddit, who I guess he's like pretty vouched for.
He's been vetted.
Suggs had a horrible workout with Toronto, and then basically they called it short, and they were like, "Come back tomorrow." And he came back the next day. He came back the next day and had another terrible workout. So apparently Scotty Barnes just absolutely killed it, shot the leather off the ball.
Really?
Yeah, like won them over with his personality, and they ended up going with Scotty. I mean, that was their guy from the beginning, but it's just
here's what I get about it. You want to pick the best player available, and Barnes' defense is probably better than Suggs' offense will ever be. So you would predict that would end up in Barnes being a better player. The problem is you kind of need a starting point as a franchise now that Lowry's gone. I don't know if it's Siakam. Doesn't seem like it the way they're floating him everywhere. It's definitely not OG, even though I love OG. And Barnes, like I know he plays a little point guard, not a ton there at Florida State last year.
He's not a point guard.
Yeah, he did just a little bit because that's what Florida State does. So you don't really have a starting point as a franchise now.
I mean, they had Raekwon Gray playing like point guard minutes at times too. Yes. So like they just
in Brooklyn.
Yeah, and so I agree. Like I think
it's a tough guy to pass up on because
and in terms of like leaders, right? Like you're losing arguably the best leader in basketball, if not one of the top like 3 or 4 in Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like he's one of the like just the best leaders there are out there. Everybody vouches for him. So you're probably
him in Boston bad.
Yeah, you need to replace that. Like you need to replace that like mentality. And Scotty Barnes does it a little bit, but there's levels to it. And I think Jalen Suggs is just so much higher up on that echelon that I would much rather just go with Suggs, have him like basically take the reins from Kyle Lowry and have him just play the next Lowry role. He doesn't need to be doing everything. Like, yes, maybe Barnes' defense is going to be better than, Suggs' offense, but Suggs doesn't need to go be a 25, like 8-8 type of guy. He just needs to go out there.
He can in Orlando.
Yeah, he could in Orlando. I'm curious what Orlando's going to do now because, I mean, yes.
I never know what Orlando's going to do.
Suggs, in my opinion, is the best out of their 4 point guards. But you got 4 point guards under like 22 years old.
You got Cole, Hampton, Fultz, Isaac, Suggs. I think they're all there, right? You would have Chandler.
RJ Hampton.
Yeah, I mentioned him, so that's 5. Okay. And then they have that other guy who played a little bit last year. I can't.
They have
Jason Randall. Yeah. And who knows? Maybe they'll add another one in free agency here. But yeah, it's kind of a mess down there, and it wasn't a great place for Suggs to end up, just in terms of being able to play in a relevant situation. But he'll put up big stats probably on that team. You got Wendell Carter too, who's kind of like a ball handling big man. So maybe they're just trying to.
And they still got Mo Bamba. I still have some hope for him.
And a lot of picks.
They got a lot of picks, and so. Who did Orlando take at 8? They took Franz Wagner. That was interesting. I mean,
that's okay.
It wasn't. That's the thing. Like Wagner wasn't bad value. I feel like Davion Mitchell to the Kings was stupid.
Oh, stupid.
I didn't see Primo going to the Spurs at all.
Don't love it. Now they're looking at Markkanen. Tough time to be a Spurs fan.
There's just there was some wild deals. And the thing is, like, Primo could very likely like break out and become a star. But it's the most San Antonio pick I've ever seen. And also, like, with a guy like Lonnie Walker, who, like, I feel like they should be very high on, at least at the Spurs games I've seen, like, he plays pretty well. He busts up Houston every single time he plays us. But, like, even
they don't
back
have
to
a tone setter there. That's the problem with having like some good guys, but not like a central piece to work around. They just have a lot of equal parts there, and no one really rises above the others.
yeah, like Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, DeJounte Murray. Like, you got a bunch of like really, really good role players playing together. And so you don't have a leader there. Josh Primo, he's not going to be that guy this year. He's not going to be that guy next year. Like, I think there's a couple other guys on the board that went like around that time that I would have rather picked if I was the Spurs, if I wanted like a leader, if I wanted a high potential guy that can probably break out. Josh Primo is a high potential guy. I think it's going to take a little bit.
Real quick on the Warriors, who are the team we've missed here in the top 10 to 15.
Yeah, man, the Warriors killed the draft.
Did they?
They killed it.
You think so?
I think Kuminga, like, if Joe Lacob did a what's it called? Interview. Presser, yeah, last week. Or not last week, yesterday. And he basically talked about how the goal here is compete now, develop now. So you got a guy like Moses Moody who can come in and help on day one. He can learn a ton from Clay. I mean, he's basically built the same way as Clay. His game is built the same way as Clay. Clay can teach him how to really, develop those skills in the same way.
This is Moody?
Yeah, Moses Moody. And I think Moody can also help.
Park?
Yeah, what'd he say?
He was trying to.
Oh yeah, I was in the stadium, so I didn't get to hear any of it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so he was hugging his family and stuff, and Perk starts talking. He's like, "Look at Moody Mosey, Moody Moody, Mosey Moody, Moody Moosey, Moody," and he just keeps going and going and going. And
yeah, I saw
everything
like Perk. It's Moses Moody.
There's some tough names to pronounce in this draft, and that's the one that got him.
I'm surprised that's the one that got him, but no.
That was so funny.
He's gonna be really good. Like, that's one of the guys that I was super high on. He was number 6 on my big board. He fell to 14, so that's huge for Golden State.
He's a Clay-like guy. You're saying?
Yeah, like he's a Clay style. Like, he's somewhere in that echelon.
Arkansas.
From Arkansas, yeah. He's somewhere in that spectrum of like Kevin Huerter to Klay Thompson.
I get that one, especially at 14. Kuminga at 7 is interesting because he's so raw. He's so early in his development. He's playing a position, hypothetically, where other guys are going to be for the immediate future here. And here's the thing about the Warriors. These first-round picks aren't cheap. Like, that's why the Knicks traded out to try to, like, save those $3 million that you're paying a first-round pick. At the top here, number 7, it's more like $6 million, right? So with the Warriors tax bill, that gets tripled, essentially. So like it's actually like 18 million for a guy like Kuminga or something like that right now, just in terms of tax. And when you loop those guys together, you're paying close to $40 million for your rookies this year. You thought you might flip those for Bradley Beal. Obviously, Beal's not on the move right now, but it is interesting that the Warriors are going to pay so much this year for guys who maybe aren't going to play if you have more veterans in front of them. I don't know what the Warriors' plan is for these guys right away, especially Kuminga, who at 18 is probably years from being an effective player, right? He might not play at all next year.
He might not, but that's the thing. Like, you don't need him to. I mean, yeah, the money's fine, but you're also the Warriors who won 4 rings. Like, you got all the money in the world right now.
Fair enough.
And, I think with the way their tax bill is anyway, you're just expecting them to pay out every year.
What do you think Kuminga could become?
Really good. I mean, like, player-wise, I don't know, but I think he has one of the higher potentials in this draft. He's got all the tools to be a really good defender. He's got all the tools to be a really good offensive player. There's a saying that, bad shooters miss left and right, good shooters miss front and back, and great shooters just don't miss. I think Kuminga's a good shooter. His shots aren't like way off. You don't see like shots airball way to the right or airball way to the left. It's always back rim, front rim, something like that. Like, I think I've talked about it a lot with the G League and how like guys like Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga had like a target on their back basically that entire bubble, game in and game out, because people are trying to beat them in order to, show that they belong in the league. Because these are the, two rising stars coming into the draft.
Yeah, they say that the G League was better too because the talent was more condensed, fewer teams were in the bubble.
And it was just better in general. I mean, like there's better players. A lot of the guys in the G League played D1 basketball. I mean, and they were some of the better players in D1 basketball as well. So I think with Kuminga, it's going to take him a long time to really develop. But like, he has extremely high potential. I mean, I think he can put the tools together. I think Golden State is the place to let him do it because, one, if he does play, he has to play within himself. You're not going to be sitting there and, taking ISO mid-range jumpers with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson also on the court, But then also, they're so good already that, one, they can kind of teach him the ropes. And, two, like you can throw him in the G League, get a little bit of time, give him some playing time, bring him back to the main roster, give him some playing time there, bring him back and forth. Like, I think that Kuminga to the Warriors is really the best fit because it gives him an opportunity to learn how to play with himself, not force things, and also kind of lets him, string things along. So I think if he goes to a team like the Magic or the Thunder or something and they just throw him in the fire, you're going to see Kuminga doing a lot of shit that he wouldn't be doing normally. And that's where I think the negatives come in, right? Because he's forcing stuff. He's exerting too much energy, basically, like trying to get himself open or he just tries to do too much.
This is kind of a guy that needed to go to Orlando. Like you would want Suggs in Golden State and you would want a guy like Kuminga in Orlando so he can just play, have no one watching, play a ton, and just figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, minutes are good too. Like I think there's two ways around it. It's either develop off the bench and really learn the rope from some vets, which is what's going to happen in Golden State, or go to Orlando and just throw shit up. And so
you gotta play. You gotta play to some degree.
You gotta play. I do think that he's probably going to be in the G League for a little bit. Going back to the Rockets, I think a guy like Garuba probably is going to be in the G League for a little bit too, just because of
maybe. Yeah.
Help him figure out the offense. Same with Josh Christopher, just because there's like same thing with Kuminga. There might not be enough minutes to go around with Josh.
That's the thing about these drafts. It's all about fit. It's all about like where you can get the best spot to emphasize your strengths, limit your weaknesses, all that kind of stuff, especially for these guys.
Yeah,
like
people say like don't draft for fit, and I get that, but like draft the player that you can develop the best.
Yes.
In my opinion, like he doesn't have to fit your roster. He doesn't have to fill a hole. But if you can develop, if you think you're more confident that you can develop a two guard who is a 3-level scorer than a big man who is a defensive big, then take the 3-level scorer and develop him. So, like, I think it's a little bit of it's a weighing game, but I think Golden State did well with the Kuminga pick. I love the Moody pick. Moody at 14 is an absolute steal.
The other steal was James Bouknight, who I saw Charlotte at 11, and I'm like, oh, geez, especially when Memphis moved up to 10. I'm like, all right, Charlotte's not in a great spot to draft here. Grizzlies just moved up in front of them, who usually draft great. I don't know about Zaire Williams, but we'll see. But so many teams, when it seemed like Bouknight was shooting maybe up as high as 6, he fell to 11. He's on a team now where he's not even going to have to start. They got great wings in front of him. So he potentially here can be a bench scoring guard who just needs to focus on scoring, being the Jordan Clarkson type that he's been compared to. And all of a sudden, I know we're going to get to the Celtics in just a little bit, everybody in the chat. But when I'm looking at the East this year, these Hornets are so good. They got a great player who I think can plug in right away and help them. It obviously let Malik Monk go, which I think needed to happen to some degree. You potentially keep Graham off the bench too, who's one of the best shooters in the league right now.
I saw earlier that Malik Monk he's probably gone. I think but I think I saw earlier there was a talk about like maybe a double sign and trade of Devontae Graham for Lonzo Ball.
Don't see that happening.
I don't see that happening. I think Lonzo goes to Chicago.
Yeah.
But no, I love the pick for the Hornets.
And the Hornets got Miles Plumlee.
Yeah.
Mason Plumlee.
Mason Plumlee. Yeah, they got Mason Plumlee, so Detroit can go sign Miles Plumlee now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, there's a lot of teams. That was funny about yesterday. Let me talk about the Hornets real quick, and then talk about all the stuff that happened yesterday.
LaMelo's amazing.
LaMelo's going to be great, and Book Knight at 11 is an absolute steal. Book Knight next to him is great. Plumlee at the 5 does way more than Zeller did. And I think he's just a much better passer. You're going to have a lot of great ball movement on that Hornets team.
Oh, they're so great.
Book Knight's going to be running the floor with LaMelo.
Please, NBA. We need like 40 national Hornets games.
Yeah. The best part about all of this is the guy that they were targeting at 11 and Kai Jones, the guy that it was rumored that they were going to get at 11, they actually ended up getting at 19 while also getting James Bouknight. So absolute win for the Hornets. There's a couple other teams that I think really won the night. Atlanta getting Jalen Johnson and Sharif Cooper, both of them just sort of falling into their lap. Like Jalen Johnson at 20, in my opinion, is a steal. And Sharif Cooper at 48 is a robbery. Sharif's going to get to learn a lot from Trae Young, another 6-foot-tall dude who, is an amazing passer. Sharif's going to learn a good amount from him. I think the 3-point percentage is going to go up a little bit as well. And then, another team that did really well, in my opinion, is the Clippers. They got Keon Johnson and BJ Boston. Both of those, very, very intriguing players. Keon Johnson, very good defender. I think he can be a good defender off the bench for them. He's going to – if they keep Pat Bev, I could see him being under Pat Bev's wing a lot in terms of the defensive end, really teaching him how to play defense. And then BJ Boston, just really high potential guy who can, score the ball, decent defender. For him, it's all about the mindset. So if the Clippers can get him to lock in, you got two really good players there. So Clippers won the night. Were one of the winners of the night. I would say the Rockets were by far the biggest winner of the night, getting, in my opinion, 3 lottery picks, and then also one of the more talented guys in the draft, in Josh Christopher. He was he was a top 10 player coming into the draft or coming into the season at Arizona State. I do think Arizona State was just a bad situation for him too, because they had 5 dudes who were ISO players who would get the ball and be like, all right, I got to do something with it. So
I'm interested in the East. The Heat, I think we all agree, will be a playoff team of some degree here, much better than last year.
The Pacers will be back as well.
Pacers will be back because they're going to keep it together. Good draft pick too.
Rick Carlisle there as well. And Chris Duarte and Isaiah Jackson for Indiana too.
So they'll be good.
Big night for them as well.
Toronto could be good. We'll see how it comes together here. It's just going to be a much better East. Bucks, Nets, Knicks. We'll see what the Knicks do.
Bucks are trying to run it back, which I don't like. I was saying that I don't like that if they get hesitant and just say, okay, well, we won, let's run it back with the same roster, because there's no way in hell you're beating the Nets next year. Not with that.
What you can do though,
unless the Nets get hurt again.
I've kicked around trading Lopez, but I don't know what you can get for him. I would have sent him to the Lakers, which didn't seem feasible. I don't think LeBron liked him there.
I think. If you guys have been watching the Olympics, Patty Mills absolutely killing it for Australia.
Oh, he would be. They need a backup point guard.
You take Jeff Teague minutes off that team and replace them with Patty Mills minutes. That's an instant plus.
They should get Monk.
They need to make these lateral moves, right? They need to replace some of the guys on their roster with slightly better players. Replace Jeff Teague with Patty Mills. Yeah, replace a guy like Pat Connaughton or something with a guy like Malik Monk. Even though Pat Connaughton had a decent playoff run. Bryn Forbes probably coming back. Bobby Portis probably coming back to Milwaukee. He's still going to be there. The Nets are still going to be there. Philly's still going to be there. Atlanta's probably going to get better.
I think the Hornets are going to be amazing too.
The Hornets are going to get better. I think they stay healthy. That's big.
I could even see them signing Fournier, which – Celtics South continues down there in Carolina, if that's the case. Rozier's amazing. They're going to be awesome. I think they could even be better than the Celtics. And that does bring me to the Celtics. So as mentioned in the chat, the Tristan trade is up in the air at this point. It didn't get done before the deadline to get done, so Tristan's still technically in Boston after they did that
really?
done. Yeah, they were using the Cantor TP from when we sent Cantor out to Portland to bring in Chris Dunn and create a Thompson exception. The Cantor TP expired at midnight, so it didn't get done using that. So they could still use a Kemba TP to get that done and bring in Fernando and Dunn.
Done.
But it feels like all three of those teams want to make this something bigger. I don't know if they get involved in the Ball trade that we've talked about to Chicago or like what could be done. I know the Celtics want to flip out Dunn and Fernando probably and try to bring in some free agents into those roster spots. I don't know what's ultimately going to happen there, but it's not done, which is interesting.
You can always go after Eric Gordon. He's always available. Daniel House too. Like that's we talked about this beforehand. Like there's like some role players on the Rockets I think could get traded, but for the Celtics, like you guys have the opportunity to make some of these like small trades. Like I said, lateral moves with the Bucks. Like get just slight upgrades.
So they did make one.
You take Shemi Ojale minutes, turn him into Daniel House minutes. It's already a better team.
That's true. Celtics fans.
That Josh Richardson trade was good, but I wanted to ask you, did you want Moses Brown? I mean, I felt like he was sort of insurance for the next time Rob Williams breaks something.
Well, Celtics fans were furious he went. It went from jubilation, fireworks the night before to getting Richardson for free. And I was surprised. You find out you send Mo. All right, compensation. Dallas needed something for him. And everyone freaked out. I don't know if it's because he had like a 20 rebound half against the Celtics, and that's what everyone in Celtics fan base saw of Brown that drove them crazy. I mean, he was good last year. 9-9, right? So he's a good player. He was on a tiny contract, like $1 million a year for like the next 4 years. So I understand the value in that. It's just, I don't think he's a Rob alternative like some people have built him up to be. He doesn't have the vision. He doesn't have the ball handling potential I think that Rob ultimately would at that spot. Not the same athleticism above the rim, not the same rim protection. So he'd be nice third string insurance behind Rob, but I don't think he's interchangeable with Rob. You have Horford in here now, which I think is fine. And then you find a third guy. I don't think Fernando's good enough for that, but ultimately I don't love Richardson. So that's the part of it that I'm not crazy about. Bad catch and shoot guy. Doesn't really shoot all that well off the dribble either. Was just tried in Dallas and Philly as like a secondary like combo guard type next to high volume forwards and Luka and Simmons. That's the situation he's going to be playing with next to Tatum here. And now he's going to be with Marcus Smart in the backcourt. And both those guys are just completely erratic shooters. I get if you can't upgrade as a team offensively, which the Celtics probably can't, you go all in on defense. So I get that. But I don't know if there's much scoring here with Kemba and Fournier going out the door. What do you think of Richardson?
Yeah, I mean, like, Josh Richardson in Miami is a different guy than Josh Richardson now. Miami Josh Richardson, I remember when Justice Winslow was there and he got hurt. They were like, well, we got Josh Richardson. He can do the exact same thing. He can play the point guard a little bit. He can play really good defense. He's a good shooter. He can score. He can rebound. He can, all this stuff. His like, what is it? 3-point percentage has declined every single season in the last 4 years. He was getting played off the court in Dallas. Like, Carlisle refused to play him at times. Richardson's an interesting player. I feel like there's probably better play. Again, I keep bringing up Eric Gordon. I don't understand how guys like Josh Richardson and Eric Bledsoe and Steven Adams and these contracts, these dudes are getting traded. And then there's a guy like Eric Gordon who's a seasoned veteran, has played in these big games, has been a big impact dude in these big games, and had a much better season last year than I think he gets credit for. He just got hurt again. How people don't take that because his contract's only 2 years. So, like, I just don't get it. Yeah, Richardson's not that good by himself. I honestly
Gordon 18 million.
It's 18, yeah, but like so it's a little bit more expensive. But like, looking at Richardson and Moses, that trade-off, I prefer the what's it called? The potential of Moses Brown to whatever Josh Richardson will give you. I think you can replace a guy like Josh Richardson really easily. I don't think you can find a 5 who is as young and as talented as Moses Brown as easily. They're not as available. Teams aren't as willing to give up a big like that. Moses, obviously, like, he's been moved around a lot, so who knows? But was there a bomb apparently? Because I see a lot of people saying.
No, I'm not seeing that. Yeah, that
But-
wasn't real. But
yeah, like, I mean, I don't know. I think I'm not huge on the Josh Richardson deal. I think if he comes off the bench and he plays
especially
a little bit,
if he's replacing Fournier, right?
Yeah, I mean, if he's replacing Fournier, Fournier was a bucket. Like, Fournier, that's his point, is to go out there and get buckets.
He had 2 games.
Richardson's not doing that stuff.
Yeah.
So, like,
and
one of those games with 7 threes was against the Rockets.
Well, let's be clear. I said this in our group chat last night. If this, and I don't think it will be, they're going to do some other stuff around the edges that makes it a little better, I think. But if this roster, as it stands, with Dunn, Richardson, and Bruno replacing Mo, Fournier, and Kemba, essentially, Chris Dunn's replacing Kemba, this might not be a playoff team. I mean, certainly a play-in team. Maybe you win the play-in game, but there's not enough scoring here on a given night. It's going to be so hard on Tatum and Brown. You don't have the shooting around them that you need. Too many big men, not enough wings. And I don't like the young guys on this team, frankly. Like, I like Neesmith. He showed a lot at the end of the season. Langford, we'll see. And then, Grant.
Who was it that y'all were targeting? And you asked me about him, and I was like, y'all already got Romeo Langford. Like, I don't know why you.
One of those guys that was going to be cut loose, Jared Culver.
Jared Culver, yeah. I mean, if you're going to take Jared Culver, I don't know why you do that when you already have Romeo Langford on the roster. Both of them, like, I don't know, just aren't really figuring it out. There's some, like, really free agency is going to be wild because a lot of teams have salary cap or, like, cap space. There's not a lot of good players out there. We're going to see some dudes get overpaid, and I also think we're going to see some dudes get underpaid and just take big salary cuts to go join a team on a 1-year, 2-year deal and then join the bigger free agency classes when everybody has money in, like, 2023, 2024. But, guys like what is it? Like, for example, I know Isaiah Hartenstein is asking for $5 million a year this offseason.
Well, that's an option. But I don't think you'd use a mid-level on him, though.
And I think he can get that much money, even though I don't think he's good enough for that. But I think he can get that much money because there's not that many people in the free agency. Somebody that I think y'all should target is Jared Vanderbilt. That's somebody I'd be willing to give the mid-level to. And he's probably going to get about 3 years, $18 million. Give him about $6 million a year, a nice little stretch 4, who's extremely athletic, plays pretty good defense. You put him next to a guy like Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, that's a much better roster.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, you do want to flip out some guys. If you can get rid of Edwards, go ahead and do it and try.
I've been asking you for about a year when's Carson Edwards getting traded.
I know. Like, I don't know what there's this sense in Boston that they have to keep developing these guys. And all of a sudden you have a guy in Semi. He got drafted in 2017. He's not staying this year, but he stayed next year in 21. So you had him for 4 years. He never really got better. He probably got worse. And all of a sudden you weren't giving other guys opportunities in that spot. What if the Celtics didn't sign Semi last summer and signed O'Shea Brissett?
Yeah, that would have been nice, wouldn't it? I mean, maybe not signing Semi in general would have been nice as well. I still don't understand what the project was with Semi Ojeleye over there for like 5 years of just being like, let's play him, let's not play him.
Oh, you're gonna do the same thing with Edwards?
Let's make him a spot-up shooter. No, let's make him a point forward. Let's make him the defensive stopper. Like, y'all couldn't figure out what to do with Semi the entire time.
And now you're doing the same thing with Edwards. Are you doing the same thing with Grant? You want to
get the only difference is Edwards is 5'8", and, like, you need to use him as, like, a spot-up shooter, and he wants to go and play point guard. Like, y'all got some weird dudes on that roster.
This team's in a tough spot. Meanwhile, they're tough against the hard cap. If they're going to do a sign and trade here, if they want to use the full mid-level, like, they're really tight against the hard cap. I guess they want to keep some flexibility in place for next summer in case the Beal thing comes around. But if you don't, all of a sudden you're kind of stuck with this core of Tatum, Brown, and Smart, which I love.
And
Smart.
who knows even if Smart stays?
Yes, that's
at this
thing.
At this point, Smart's your only trade chip, who has positive value. Like Horford doesn't. You're not trading Jalen Brown. If you do, you're getting back like Damian Lillard. You're not trading Jason Tatum. It's like Smart and Peyton Pritchard are your only two positive assets right now. Like Rob Williams maybe, but Rob Williams is also hurt more than he's not. Like teams aren't really willing to do that.
Rob?
Would I extend Rob? Let me see him play 20 straight games first. I don't know. My thing with big men is I'm just a little unwilling to pay them if they can't play more than 40
on
games.
Smart, I really like Smart.
Grant Williams, too. He kind of sucks. You guys just got a bunch of dudes who shouldn't even be on the roster taking roster spots. When the Celtics roster is only 7 deep because guys 8, 9, and 10 are Grant Williams, Aaron Nesmith, and Romeo Langford, and then 11 through 15 are even worse than those guys. There needs to be a little bit deeper of a bench. I do think Celtics fans have a little bit of a too much of a connection with Marcus Smart.
Depends who it is. Some people hate him.
Some people hate him from what I've seen, but there's a lot of people who sorry, my printer started printing out of nowhere. I guess somebody in my family needed something printed. But with Marcus Smart, damn, this shit's loud as fuck. Hold on.
So here's what we got on Smart right now. I saw some people kicking around Smart's status in the chat, and I do think you have to move ahead. You need to trade up on Smart's value. You're right. He's the only value guy that you have. I don't think he's a good fit as the third option on a team. We saw that last year. A lot of people are oh, let Smart be the point guard for a year and see how it goes. You kind of saw it last year when Kemba was out. It didn't work all that well, and he was too focused on offense, and his defense kind of took a hit. He got hurt. It looked like he tore his Achilles, which would have been horrible. Last year would have been even worse if that ended up happening.
Yeah.
It was just a calf strain. So I'm looking at this Chris Mannix thing now, and Chris Mannix is solid out there on these reports, saying that the Celtics would have interest in Spencer Dinwiddie, which obviously would be a long term.
Did you see what? Did you see I think in our group chat it was sent a couple of days ago of how Dinwiddie said that him, Beal, and Rui Hachimura would be a great big three. I don't know. Dinwiddie's cool. That's another guy who just is hurt a lot. If I'm
listen to this real quick because this is interesting. Yeah. Mannix says Boston's acquisition of Josh Richardson could spell the end of Marcus Smart's run in Boston.
Probably.
Which is what I said, you can't play those guys together.
So
Smart has become a fan favorite over the years in Boston, but Brad Stevens has been frustrated by Smart's unpredictable play in recent years. Smart, one of the better NBA perimeter defenders, is entering the final year of his contract. They could extend him, but two people familiar with Stevens' thinking tells SI it's more likely Stevens will look to trade Smart before the season starts. The Celtics shopped him last year, seeking multiple firsts. And what's his value now? Probably a first-round pick and a rotation player, an Eastern Conference executive told SI. Might be able to swap him for a similar player that fits a positional need.
Yeah, I mean, so I do agree that Josh Richardson probably means that Marcus Smart's out. I think having both of them is a little repetitive. Neither of them, they kind of do the same things. I would say Smart does everything a little bit better, but Smart's also a little bit more expensive. I think he's $14.3 million compared to 11.6. I know I keep bringing up Houston, but you look at a team like Houston with vets like DJ Augustine, vets like Daniel House. You have Sterling Brown, David Nwaba, Kelly Olynyk, who you can go and make sign and trades with, and all that stuff. Go to these bottom-feeding teams right now. Say, do you want your vets or not? And put them into the TPE. I believe DJ Augustine fits that Kemba Walker TPE perfectly.
Unless they use that.
He's a great in my opinion, he's one of the better off the bench point guards in the league. He keeps things afloat. He's a smart player. He doesn't do anything like crazy, but he like I said with Patty Mills earlier and how I think the Bucks should go sign Patty Mills. DJ Augustine, he's not as good as Patty Mills, but he keeps things afloat. He keeps things afloat, unlike, if you're putting the hands or the ball in, Carson Edwards' hands or, Peyton Pritchard's, you're not really knowing what you're getting. But Peyton Pritchard's also a rookie, so y'all need a point guard. Like, that's the thing. Y'all need a point guard. Y'all should stop caring about whether or not Marcus Smart is on the roster and say, how do we get a point guard? Because
yes. Or you could get a point guard.
Ricky Rubio just got traded to the Cavs, and even though I feel like Ricky Rubio just means like you trade for him.
Smart for Ingles?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
let's say you trade Smart for Ingles. You have a secondary ball handler in Ingles. He's not necessarily a point guard, but you could sign Patty Mills. And all of a sudden you have ball handlers everywhere. Maybe you don't have like an absolute 4 general. You could do McConnell too, if that works.
TJ McConnell just got brought up too. TJ McConnell's a good name as well. Yeah. I do think the Pacers just got rid of Aaron Holiday.
Yep. They're trying to keep McConnell.
So they're probably trying to keep McConnell. I would trade, there's a couple dudes out there that I think, they should be looking at. Ricky Rubio, definitely one of them, although Rubio just finds himself on bad teams year in and year out.
Rubio's a little too expensive.
Yeah, and he might be a little bit too expensive. Yeah, Terry Rozier coming back. I mean, they got a lot of point guards.
They missed that one.
Devontae Graham, who is a free agent. Lonzo Ball. I mean, he's
all right. So here's the ball thing. Let's do the ball thing.
Lonzo makes a lot of sense. People that don't want him, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get why you don't want him.
So you think Ball will be in Chicago?
I think he'll be in Chicago. Yeah.
So here's the tricky thing about that for me. Who did the Bulls send back to the Pelicans? Because right now, if the Bulls renounce everything, they can only offer Ball $12 million. I don't know if the Pelicans want Markkanen, do they? You could do that, but I don't know if the Pelicans want Markkanen on a new contract. Obviously, the Pelicans are looking at Dinwiddie. They wanted Lowry. That stuff's probably not going to happen. So unless you get a third team in here, the Bulls are going to have a tough time bringing Ball in without sending back Satoransky or Young, who I was surprised they didn't cut because that could have opened up even more cap space.
Young's there to stay for sure. Thad Young is the vet of that team. I think the non-guaranteed contract just is how things ended up being played out. Satoransky and Aminu for Lonzo Ball.
Pelicans take that? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think Pelicans take that because well, here's the thing. He's restricted, right? So let's say Kyle Lowry goes to Miami. Do the Pelicans just say, all right, let's just keep Lonzo?
Why not just keep Lonzo?
Yeah, you just trade Eric Bledsoe. You don't have a point guard. I don't know how much they like Kyra Lewis, but I don't think he's that great.
You could just trade Ball later, there's a real big emphasis right now for them to just get Lonzo out of there somehow. When you have him on restricted rights, that would feasibly limit how much he's going to get paid, which maybe would piss him off, and maybe he'll be very unhappy going into camp there and playing for the team early next year. But you should keep Ball because he's a good player. He's a ball mover. Hasn't necessarily worked with them yet, but maybe you can make some other moves around those guys that make things better there. Now, in terms of the Celtics, who are really in full pursuit of Ball, as we've heard this week, you have a camp that's told me Smart's better, which might be true.
Yeah.
But does Ball fit better next to Richardson? He certainly shoots better. He's not the same versatile defender as Smart, but he is a good defender. And he is, 23? So he could keep getting better here. If you're not certain Beal's coming, doesn't a trio of Ball, Tatum, and Brown potentially continue to grow here in a way that Smart?
That's the thing.
Tatum would?
Tatum's 22, Brown's 23, something like that. They're
23,
both
24, yeah.
23 and 24. So
Tatum was born the same month as me.
Well, Tatum's 19, so but Lonzo also around that same age. I don't know. I think the fact that Tatum and Brown are so good kind of makes a lot of fans in Boston think we need to compete today, we need to be winning today. But these dudes are 23 years old. Like, you go get another 23-year-old and have the three of them grow together. That's your big three in a couple of years.
Put them
2
on
or
the
3 years from now.
timeline.
2 or
And
3
again,
years from now, when Brooklyn is done, when the Brooklyn project is over, when, probably like Philly isn't Philly anymore. I mean, Embiid at like 30 is probably not going to be the same as Embiid now. And who knows what happens with Ben Simmons. But like 3 years from now, a big three of Lonzo Ball, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum is arguably one of the best big threes in the league. Unless like things get crazy, that's probably one of the better big threes in the league. So I don't understand why you don't go get another really young guy. I see Wiseman being thrown around. I think the Warriors are way too high on Wiseman to make any trade.
I also don't think the Celtics value bigs like that.
The way the Celtics play, I mean, I think the fact that they went and traded for Horford kind of shows you they don't care about getting a traditional big. They want to play a certain style of basketball.
I love Horford being back.
That works for Tatum. I love Horford as well. I think you do need to go get a like traditional big man, but I don't think you go and you make a trade for it. I think you just go sign like Nerlens Noel or something.
So here's the thing when we talk about Ball Smart. I hear Celtics fans who are like, I love Ball, but I wouldn't trade Smart for him. And it's like, all right, first of all, it's not going to work without trading Smart. Second of all, I get it. Like Smart, there's so many reasons to love Smart. But we're talking about Ball here, who it's hard to argue against being is better. And if he's not, he will become better within time.
He doesn't have the same like competitive spirit, that Marcus Smart does.
Yeah.
But like, who cares? Like, I mean, you do need that guy on your roster, in my opinion.
So I said this last year,
guys without having them take up so many minutes and not being your number one trade chip.
So I said this last year because I've been talking about moving Smart since like the deadline last year. Couldn't Neesmith become Smart per se? Like the way he played last year, so he doesn't have the same defensive abilities, but he hustled his brain off. He made a ton of defensive plays because of how hard he played. He's got similar length and size. He's pretty chiseled, and he can really shoot. So if his shooting takes a massive spike, I think he shot like over 40% last year down the stretch of the season. All of a sudden, his shooting might overrule the little extra defense that you get in Smart. So, like the things you look for in Smart in terms of the hustle, Neesmith could just start to do those things and fill that kind of intensity gap that you talk about there with Ball. Because at the end of the day, like it's talent. You need talent to win. And all this hustle stuff and all these intangibles, they're great. But when you're undermanned with talent, you just need to upgrade your talent on the team so you can just be a better team next year. Like this could be the most spirited hustle team in Celtics history if you have Dunn, Richardson, Smart, blah, 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 blah. They're really not that good. So they might be the 7 or 8 seed.
Yeah, and that's the problem. I have a question for you. Would you do Marcus Smart for like Terrence or like Marcus Smart in a first for like Terrence Ross and one of those point guards that's stuck in Orlando, like RJ Hampton?
I don't think that's enough for Smart. Now, here's the other side of Smart in my mind. I wouldn't give him away. Like some people hate Smart so much that they're like, just get him out of here.
I see some of those in the comments right now. Yeah.
I don't agree with that because I do think Smart has value. His defense, if you look at a team like the Pelicans, if you look at a team like the Hawks last year before they really got going, I think could have used them, or a bad team, there's value in his leadership, defense, like being a forward general on the defensive side of the ball. So like getting a bench scorer and Ross and just like some low-level prospect, I think, isn't worth potentially extending Smart for a fair price here.
Yeah,
so
I do think
Smart away.
I do think the Celtics need to look at some. Like I said, you need to look at some of these like middling teams who are trying to get rid of some vets and say, we'll trade you Marcus Smart, who will be a great leader for your young guys. I mean, for sure. And give us the vets that you're trying to get rid of.
That was what almost happened with Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, and like
I went back and forth on it, and ultimately, and I think I was right. I said Gordon's just not good enough. Like, he's close, but I don't know. I think Smart's better than Gordon.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Aaron Gordon does much to like. He was good for Denver because he worked for Denver.
Yeah.
I don't think he needs to be in the right systems to be able to actually do well. But with free agency and everything this year, like it's basically on Lowry first, and then once we see where Lowry goes, which in my opinion is going to be Miami. Then we'll probably see where Lonzo goes, where Mike Conley goes, where all of these different guys ending up. I think what Boston might need to do, just because y'all don't really have cap space, first go and try and get a guy who's willing to take that MLE. Just try and throw that at everybody, and then you need to start making trades. You need to start thinking about trades. What draft picks do y'all still have?
We have all 6 for the next 6 years.
So there's also a world where you say, okay, we have Marcus Smart, we also have Josh Richardson now, but you package the two of them together with, I just saw a Smart for Malik Beasley. I absolutely love that idea. That's like what I'm saying. There's a lot of shitty teams out there who have a lot of good role players. And you trade Marcus Smart, who is a great leader, and you send him to one of those really bad teams and say, give me the guy that is sort of like out of the rotation or out of the picture for you for the future. A guy like Malik Beasley in Minnesota, 25 years old, 26 years old, on a good contract. D'Lo is the starting 1 there. You probably have Anthony Edwards as the starting 2 there for the time being. Where's Malik Beasley going to play? Do you play him off the bench or anything like that? Trade Smart, get Malik Beasley. You have Smart coming off the bench. It makes a little bit more sense. He can run those second units. He can be your defensive guy at the end of the games for the Timberwolves. He can also be a leader in that locker room. And you get Malik Beasley, who's a great scorer off the bench, might even force Boston to not have to overpay Evan Fournier. You could even use Evan Fournier as a sign and trade chip, maybe get a couple things out of there. Like, there's ways to get creative here for Boston. There's ways to really upgrade your roster. It's about going out and doing it. And Brad Stevens, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt for the first year.
He's done good so far, right?
He's done pretty well so far. I like the Horford deal. I don't really like trading Moses Brown immediately after getting him. But
so here's the thing about the Richardson thing that I do like about it. Again, I don't think there's a chance Richardson could really help the Celtics next year. Yeah. And you gave up, I don't want to say nothing because, Mo's a good, fine center, young center prospect. But you essentially gave up a guy who makes $1 million for a really solid $11 million player. And when you have no cap space, no real flexibility, I think using the TP. So the first half of the TP from Hayward went to Fournier. This was the rest of it. So you really did essentially get Josh Richardson, who I don't love, but is an NBA starter for nothing. So that's pretty good in terms of the guys that were going to be in that TPE range money-wise, like $11 million. I like the Richardson thing in that sense. But yeah, you do have to kind of build a roster here around it. I want to kick around some other free agency things before we get out of here and then take some questions from people. We'll continue to see what is coming through here and kind of just hang out for a little bit, just see what the buzz is before free agency gets going at 6:00 today. Dinwiddie. There was some talk of a secondary trade between the Wizards after they dumped Westbrook and got all those Lakers guys. Nets would be picking up Kyle Kuzma, Harrell. Again, Nets are a deep tax team, so those would be really expensive additions at $13 and $9 million. That would probably be more like, who knows, tax-wise, probably close to 160, 70 million to add those guys. I'm not good with the tax in terms of what gets multiplied. I do usually think that teams deep in the tax get multiplied by about 3. So if you're taking in 22 million, it's close to 70 million in tax money for those two.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw Bobby Marks' tweet about the tax bill for the
if you signed Dinwiddie,
it would be $87 million or something like that.
So the Nets can't keep Dinwiddie. There's a lot of different ways they could sign and trade him. Would the Nets be interested in Smart for Dinwiddie? I think
They
it's
should
kind of
be.
I think it's kind of dangerous if you're the Celtics trading Smart to a team that you're going to be playing 4 times a year and pissing them off. But if you get Dinwiddie as your point guard of the future, that's probably pretty good, right?
And Dinwiddie's like, I'm sure he's not very happy about the way things are going in Brooklyn either. I mean, maybe he is. I don't know. But, like,
Is Dinwiddie a future point guard for a team, like a guy you really invest 20, 25 million in here?
isn't he like 28?
I don't
I might
think
have
he's
that
that
wrong.
old.
I think he's older. Maybe it's just a mustache.
It's been a while since we've seen him.
He's 28. Yeah, he's 28. He turns
All right.
29 by the end of next season. I mean,
So
like,
at the end of this contract,
what future? You know, by what future?
I guess it's just the fact that he's really good right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's good now, but he's also like a year removed from injury. Let's see what happens. I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a team that overpays him. That contract might not look good in a couple of years. It might look great, but Dinwiddie's also a businessman. I mean, I have him on LinkedIn. That dude's a businessman. Above all,
you have to pay him in Bitcoin. That's right.
Gotta pay him in Bitcoin. Yes, sir. But no, he's a businessman above all else. Like
that's gonna be a locker room.
He knows how to
issue.
make his money, and he's gonna make his money. I mean,
that's gonna be a locker room issue on the days where it's down. It'll be like, oh my god, I'm only set to make $1 million this year.
But no, I mean, I like Dinwiddie a good amount. I don't know. I think if, like I said, you trade Smart, you gotta be a little bit more like you gotta look for more. But the deal of Dinwiddie for Kuzma and Harrell, I like that a lot for both teams.
Yeah, the Nets would be.
Well, okay, let me rephrase. I like that a lot for the Nets. I don't care what happens with Washington because like it doesn't mean it's not going to do anything for them. They're not going to be a playoff team probably.
Don't know what they're doing. I don't know what Beal's doing.
Yeah, I don't know what Beal's doing either.
This Beal thing's becoming like KG in Minnesota.
I think Beal's waiting to see what happens with Dame. Like if Dame comes back from the Olympics and requests a trade, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Bradley Beal request a trade.
I think Beal might just want to go to free agency.
He might not even want to trade and just want to play it out. How many more years does he have on his deal? 1?
He can opt out next summer.
Next summer, he might just do that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I mean, I think with Beal and like with the Wizards, like they're building something very weird there. I like that they got Corey Kispert.
Good pick.
Yeah, great pick. You need shooters. You need every team needs
his Bertans.
Man.
Too many wings, too many shooting, scoring wings there. Rui hasn't really gotten going the way they've wanted him to. Denny might really go down as a bust. I don't know. He's young, but we'll see.
Yeah, he's still very young. Same with Rui. I mean, like, they just got Aaron Holiday. They still have Ish Smith on roster. Like, it's just a weird
The problem
team.
is these guys are solid talents, but none of them play defense. All of a sudden, you're racing the other way, playing the highest pace in the league, trying to score a ton, and you're just kind of that middling team that's running back and forth, like giving up as many as they score.
I want to bring up with Boston. I see G. Martin say Beal wanted to come to Boston, but Brad gave away all their contracts. I disagree with that. Let's say come trade deadline, Bradley Beal says, I want to get out of Washington. I'm tired of this. Marcus Smart, Jason Richardson, or Josh. I keep saying Jason Richardson, who is a much different player.
Do that too, yeah.
Much different player than Josh Richardson.
I wonder if they're related.
If Jason Richardson was on the Celtics, I'd be ecstatic.
Be throwing it back.
Probably not if he's like 42 or whatever. But
get Antoine Walker, Paul Pierce.
Yeah, just go back. Let's go back 10 years to the glory days of the Celtics and just deal with that instead. But, Josh Richardson, Marcus Smart, some of your younger dudes and some picks, that's an offer. That's an offer for
Beal?
For Beal. Like, I think that's a good deal for Beal.
I think you need to put the pressure on Beal a little bit to kind of force his way here with the contract. I don't know if he's going to do that. I don't know if he wants to leave Washington, frankly. If Washington traded Westbrook, I guess we can talk about the Westbrook thing now. don't you think
Yeah,
Beal
man.
kind of gave the seal of approval? Like, you wouldn't trade Westbrook for these random guys without Beal kind of signing off on it, right?
Yeah, but then also like Beal signing off on a trade of Russ for KCP, Kuzma, and Harrell is a little funny. 22 was nice. I mean, getting Isaiah Jackson, who you ended up flipping
For Holiday.
Which
So
now that I
Holiday.
think about it, that's not nice. That's not a good deal. But, you know, I see DeJounte Murray. DeJounte Murray would be a great Celtic.
Yeah, I don't know how you make that deal work.
I mean, the same thing that, like, kind of the same deal. I think if you, with Josh Richardson,
Do
you
the
flip
Spurs
him to
want
San
Smart?
Antonio. Huh? Do they want Smart? I'm sure, like, man, maybe. I don't know. Like, I don't know what the Spurs are doing. The Primo pick confused the hell out of me because you got Vassell, you got Lonnie Walker, and you just signed Derek White to like a 3-year, $45 million extension.
Back to the Westbrook trade.
Yeah. Sorry, back to the Westbrook trade. It's really good for the Lakers, in my opinion.
Is it?
I like it a lot. Yeah. I mean, like, what did you lose?
So I heard two schools of thought on it. Yes, Westbrook is going to tear them through the regular season and really probably spell LeBron a ton. Give Davis time off if he needs it. Just be a guy who's a constant in there so other guys can rest and you don't fall apart to the 7th seed if you're banged up like they were last year. Because obviously, as you saw last year, if you slip enough in the standings, you're going to lose because you're going to play a really good team first round or you're going to get completely drained in the first round. You're going to have nothing left for the rest of the playoff run. So people were a little too confident in the Lakers last postseason playing the Suns.
Yeah, definitely.
But when you get to the playoffs, what's your lineup? Drummond, Davis, Russ, LeBron? Because Davis is
Drummond's probably not staying.
Well, all right, let's say it's Gasol. Like, Davis is still doing this thing where he doesn't want to play center.
Yeah.
Russ and LeBron are shooting disasters.
Yeah.
You got good playmaking there, but you just don't have much shooting.
I think if you look at the trade, right, and you look at what they trade away, 22, in my opinion, is the part that hurts because you could have got a player that you could really plug and play into your roster.
KCP hurts.
KCP, in my opinion, is replaceable. You can replace him in free agency with like a $4 million contract. You can replace him with Malik Monk, you know? You can replace him with a lot. There's a lot of guys that I think can replace KCP. There's a lot of guys I think can replace Montrezl Harrell, and there's a lot of guys I think can replace Kyle Kuzma. So you traded a bunch of replaceable players, in my opinion, for Russell Westbrook, who I think is very unique. Whether that's a good or bad thing is kind of up to interpretation, but he's an extremely unique player. There's not very many players in the league ever like Russell Westbrook. And there's a lot of players with the kind of drive, the kind of mentality like Russell Westbrook, also paired with the skill. So I think you have him at the 1. You probably replace Dennis Schroeder with Russell Westbrook as well. I think that's a positive replacement. You do a sign and trade with Dennis Schroeder, most likely to give Schroeder the most amount of money he can possibly get. Someone's going to throw him that money. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of dudes who get overpaid. He's going to be one of them.
Pistons, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. But, like, Schroeder probably is going to get money. You can probably get something back in return for him. I see, Carmelo in the comments. He shot 40% from 3 last year. If he's willing to just come off the bench and just be a spot-up shooter next to Russ and next to – I mean, he's played with Russ before in OKC. I think it's a plus. You got to get shooters. That's the thing. You got to get shooters. You get – like, maybe you bring back Alex Caruso. I don't think that's good enough. Maybe you bring back, Ben McLemore. I don't think that's, like, that great. You go into the offseason looking for shooters. I mean, I think that's why they went and got. I believe they have Austin Reeves on their summer league roster. It's
the guy you like, Ayayi.
Ayayi, I like Ayayi a good amount. I thought that's someone that the Boston should have took. You were telling whenever I said Ayayi, you said we need more.
Yeah, we didn't have roster spots.
But you said we love our French guys, and y'all went and got a French guy. So
a guy who's.
I like Begarin. I like him a lot. Like I think he's going to be a draft stash for a few years, but he's extremely talented.
It's a smart way to go about it. You just kick it
Yeah,
down.
like worst case scenario, he doesn't work out and you ruin the 45th pick, and best case scenario, he ends up being a good role player in Boston. Passing up on Sharif Cooper when you desperately needed a point guard was definitely a little weird.
He wasn't the way to address point guard now.
But yeah, he's not the way to address it. He might be the way to address a backup point guard spot. And maybe the point guard for the future. Who knows what happens with him? But definitely
Cooper
not.
ended up in a really good spot, by the way, behind Young. Like, he can learn a ton from Young, and there's no pressure for him to play a ton.
Absolutely,
right away.
yeah. And he's going to be running the exact same system as Young too. And so, you know, he's going to be able to play that perfectly. And yeah, I see you can replace what Harrell gives you on defense with any young center that's less than 6'10" that's available to sign. You can replace what Harrell gives you on defense with Nerlens Noel. You can replace it with Dwight Howard if he comes back. I mean,
Dwight's looking to come back, which is good.
And I saw that he's looking to go back to LA for the third time. Like, I think that, yeah, maybe they wanted KCP to be able to trade by the trade deadline. I guess, but if you're able to get Westbrook, you do it. Like, I don't think there was anything better out there for them. Maybe you go get Buddy Hield, but all you did was throw in one extra contract and you got Russell Westbrook. Like, that's a win in my book. Go and get – yeah, Harrell's not that great of a defender. He's just a rim protector. But you can get that with basically any big man. Go and get some shooters in the offseason. Summer League, all of that. You know, surround these guys with good role players, good shooters. They got Alan Griffin, former Qs. I mean, I think he's all right. I don't know why he went into the draft. I like him a little bit, but I believe he signed with Clutch, so that makes a little bit sense to the LA thing. He's, in my opinion, he might stick around with the Lakers, maybe on a two-way. I don't know. I mean, like the Lakers have moves they can make. It's just about making them. Same thing with Boston, man. Like, a lot of these teams just need to make the move. Like, so many teams are just hesitant on making moves, and obviously, like, both teams have to agree. So you got to do something that works for both squads. But, like, I don't know. I feel like trading Smart on draft day would have been the best idea because you saw how some of those guys slipped. Utah got Jared Butler at 40. Imagine if you would have traded Smart for number 40 and you know, Joe Ingles, like you said, and you go and you have Jared Butler and Joe Ingles on the Celtics tomorrow. That's a win, you know. Like,
I also think Herbert Jones is a guy who potentially could have been that Smart like impact on a team if you brought him in at 45. I think he might have been gone a little bit sooner than that, but again, this is the concept that you can find guys to do smart things. Maybe not as well as Smart, but at 80%, if you end up finding a different thing you need for Smart and you replace Smart's hustle and intensity on the floor somewhere else, I think it's worth your while. NEEMA and I are going to be at Summer League, which is going to be fun. Maybe we'll do
sir. One more week. One more week.
I'm going on the 9th too, which is great. So I'll be there from the 9th to the 16th. I think NEEMA is going to be there for the most part as well.
I'm there the 8th. I'm there the 8th to the 15th. So
all right. So we'll probably do a video out there if we get a chance together. We'll definitely watch a ton of games together. The Celtics, like there's a reason I'm going. The Celtics have Pritchard out there, Neesmith, Langford, Bagarin might go, which is great, and Madar, who might join the team this year as well out of Israel. Who's a flashy young point guard with a ton of passing skills. And wish Grant was going, but I guess he doesn't feel like it. So
yeah, I mean, the Rockets roster, too, about to be a lot of fun with Kevin Porter Jr., KJ Martin, Jalen Green, Josh Christopher. We picked up Matthew Hurt from Duke. We have Armani Brooks and a couple other big names out there probably. Not big, but, you know, Jay Sean Tate as well. It's about to be a really fun summer league. The Rockets schedule is us.
Is LaMelo going to go?
I don't think so. But if he does, maybe one game. The thing is, a lot of the rookies last year never got summer league.
Yeah.
So giving them maybe that experience, maybe some of them just want to do it. You know,
Edwards would be great to see.
Vegas is fun.
Wiseman, if he's healthy.
Edwards probably being in summer league for the 4th straight year. Like
no. Anthony Edwards.
Oh, Anthony Edwards. Carson Edwards too, though.
Carson's going too. Yeah.
I won't be surprised if Carson's traded by the end of summer league.
That would be too bad.
I'm like just from my own connections, being in Houston, I know he's sort of ready to get traded any day now.
By the way, while we kick around Summer League stuff, we're going to squeeze in some questions here at the end. So fire away with some questions in the chat. Thank you so much. We got close to 400 people in the chat here today.
Oh, wow.
So Summer League, what else are we looking for out there? Teams. I mean, Cade's going to be
awesome. I mean, like
the
Rockets schedule is us against the top 4 teams in the lottery, the other top 4. So, or the other top 5. So we're playing against the Cavs. We're playing against the Pistons.
Mobley versus Green early on.
Mobley versus Green in game 1. We get Green versus Cade. We get Green versus Scotty Barnes, and then Green versus Jalen Suggs. So
awesome.
It's going to be a lot of fun in those games. I don't know the Celtics schedule.
Should be loaded. I believe we have Philly. We have the Magic.
That Philly roster is pretty good too, if I'm gonna be honest.
We got the Hawks, I think.
Yeah.
And who's the 4th team they'll be playing? It'll be Atlanta first, I think. The second game will be Nuggets. Yes, Atlanta first, Nuggets, Magic, Sixers.
That's pretty good.
Nuggets roster, but Magic are pretty loaded as a Summer League team. You see
Magic just released their roster, actually. Let me see if I can find it. I just saw it.
Did Philly get a good pick in Jaden Springer?
They got a great pick in Jaden Springer, in my opinion.
Philly drafts well.
I mean, Morey kind of just knows what he's doing in terms of some stuff. He's had some big misses in Houston, though, so we'll see what happens with Philly long term. But, that Orlando roster, Cole Anthony's on it, RJ Hampton's on it, Justin Jackson's on it, Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs, Yonte Matten, Barry Brown Jr., like Amar Silla. They got a decent squad out there. I'm surprised they have Taj Edie as well. Hey, Avi. I'm surprised they aren't signing or they aren't bringing in Mo Bamba just because he never gets minutes. But
what is wrong? I guess the reason you wouldn't go to Summer League is because if you get exposed in Summer League, you're all but done.
Yeah, especially as like a 3rd or 4th year player.
So there's a lot to lose and not much to gain. But I just think playing is great. When we talk about Ben Simmons, I guess we might as well end the show talking about Simmons here on Philly. Why wouldn't he play for Australia? Like, go just fool around in some Olympic games. There won't be a ton of pressure, and you can practice free throws.
You play in Australia and you've been exposed by a 41-year-old Luis Scola. Your trade value is down. I mean, like,
so Morey came to the Celtics apparently and asked for 6 firsts and Tatum for Simmons. I don't know.
First of all, there's no way Morey did that. But also, I've heard some wild stuff about Morey. Like he would go like. It would be like trade deadline, like 3 p.m. normally is when the trade deadline is. It would be like 2:45. Teams are still like finalizing deals or whatever. And he'd call them up and be like, Eric Gordon and 6 first-rounders for your best player. And they'd be like, what the fuck? We never talked about this for the last, like, most of these deals are talked about between GMs and like front offices for like months on end. You know, they're hitting up guys like, oh, how do you feel? Like, for example, he would hit up the Celtics. What are y'all's thoughts on, like, what are y'all doing with Marcus Smart? You know, like what are y'all doing with Grant Williams? What's your plan with Rob Williams? So he'd ask you about players like that. Then 15 minutes before the trade deadline, say, yeah, we want to trade everything we have for Jason Tatum. And then they'd be like, you never asked us about Tatum all season long. And what makes you think we'd trade Tatum in the first place? And what the hell is this offer? And so, like, he's just doing the same shit over and over again. Morey likes to lowball every single team or get them to overpay.
So how will the Simmons thing be resolved? I always thought.
First of all, understanding his value. His value is a little bit down right now. Obviously, I do think he's worth at least a couple first rounders plus a young player.
Can they make CJ Simmons work?
It should, in my opinion. I think Portland now with Norman Powell as a free agent. It's a little bit tough. I do think that Ben Simmons
Would CJ Embiid work in Philly?
Yeah, I mean CJ's all right. Like I don't think that
he's really good on offense.
Yeah, he's horrible on defense. But I think having CJ with Matisse Thybulle allows you to actually be able to play Matisse Thybulle more than 20 minutes a game, because you couldn't do that with Ben Simmons also on the floor. You know, I think the thing with Ben Simmons is there's nothing wrong with being the fourth best player on a championship team. Draymond Green got all of his flowers for that. You know. There's nothing wrong with being the glue guy. He's like a super glue guy. He does everything pretty well other than shoot. But everything else he does at an above average, like
roll, pass, and rebound.
Great, yeah. I mean, right? That's all you really need to do. So I think trading him maybe to like a rebuilding team and have a team be able to be built around Ben Simmons' strengths, rather than building a team around Embiid's strengths and getting stuck with Ben Simmons there is the goal.
That's why I like him in Toronto, especially with the developmental system.
Yeah, I mean, I saw there was the idea. It was like I believe it was Maxey and Simmons and like a future first for Pascal and Lowry, and a sign and trade of Lowry as well.
The Lowry thing would have made a ton of sense for Philly because they really wanted him last year.
Yeah, and I mean, like Siakam for Simmons, even straight up, like Siakam. I think Simmons is a better player than Siakam, barely. But also, I think it's more of like the potential there. Siakam for Simmons makes a lot of sense. Like it makes a lot of sense for both teams. And I think Simmons and Scotty Barnes are similar players as well.
So this is the hard thing in the NBA, NEEMA, and I see this again. Like this happened to the Celtics with Kemba last year. When you have a guy making $30 million, it's really hard to prop them up as a role guy, which is essentially what you're like describing with Simmons and the things he needs to emphasize here. It's hard to take them out of games. Like Doc couldn't do it. Like all he needed to do to win that Atlanta series was take Simmons out of a few of those fourth quarters, and he couldn't do it just because of the status and the attitudes and the egos and all that stuff. And it's really hard to obviously acquire a guy at that stature because the Sixers don't want to sell low on him. The salary coming back's immense. So, like, these are, like, some of the weird things in the NBA that limit a guy like him from figuring it out and may capsize his career. Because, like, at $30 million in the role he's in Philly, he needs to become a star who does everything. And I think, like, that expectation right now is what's killing him. Like, you're right. If he focused on the little things and you could find him, like, a role spot in the league somewhere, it'd be amazing. Like, think of him on Golden State. But it's so hard to make that work, and it's so hard for Philly to make that make sense. But you can't bring him back next year, can you?
Yeah, I mean, you can. I think you're just punting on Embiid another year.
Embiid's a free agent very soon.
Yeah, like I think if you bring Simmons, back, it's just like I don't know. I like Morey needs to realize that Simmons' value isn't that great. Another team that would be great for him is Charlotte. You send him to a team like Charlotte, maybe for like Gordon Hayward.
All right.
And let Simmons run the four. You have Book Knight on there. You have Terry Rozier. You have all these other guys who can handle the ball, do stuff for themselves. And what's wrong? Sorry, my dog just started freaking out. But like being able to do all these different things, like I think it's like important with Simmons, and I like to sort of build a team around him and put him around players that can kind of create for themselves and do things for themselves, rather than have a team be built or have Simmons be on a team that's built around somebody else. I do see don't take the ball out of LaMelo's hands, and I agree with that. But Charlotte ran a 3-guard lineup a lot of last year with Devontae Graham and with Terry Rozier. The ball was out of LaMelo's hands a lot of times. Like, you can't have LaMelo be the only one handling the ball. Simmons needs to be playing a little bit more off ball anyway. I think he needs to be sort of like a roller. You need to sort of get him more to, cut, maybe drive and kick type of guy. And I think LaMelo also needs to learn a little bit how to play off ball as well. And so having both those guys sort of play off of each other, one of them's strengths is the other one's weaknesses. The other one's strengths is the other one's weaknesses. They kind of fulfill each other a little bit. But I mean, there's spots for Simmons in the league. It's about getting him to those spots and not being a dick about it, and that's what Murray needs to do. Like,
no, and it's smart for Philly too. Like, they can't hang on to this. They can't let this keep going forever. So, ultimately, that's our chat. Thank you, NEEMA, for joining us here. Up there he is.
Yeah, sorry, I had to
go
open
an
the
hour
door.
and a half now. I'm glad we got a little buzz. That smart stuff was good. So we'll be back on the Garden Report with our full cast here for all the fans of that show at 6 o'clock. And you can find this podcast, of course, stream-wise. You can watch it here on CLNS. You can listen to it. I'd appreciate if you subscribe to the podcast stream because I talk my shit on there at the beginning in non-video format. And I include a lot of different stuff in those streams that you don't get here in our live streams here. So go subscribe over there. Follow NEEMA's work. NEEMA, you're at Finding NEEMA 23 on Twitter.
Yeah. Follow me on Twitter at FindingNEEMA23.
If any of people finally saw you and loved you on here, so this is good. This is a good chat.
If you guys, are interested in anything going on with Rockets, follow my Rockets podcast. It's at Gen Z Rockets. I got a lot of cool stuff coming up, especially with Summer League. We'll
be out there. We'll do a video. We'll put it up.
Yeah, we'll do a video out there as well. And always good to talk to Bob. It's always fun just being able to talk about basketball in general. So I appreciate you having me on here. Dome Theory, great show.
Dome Theory,
one of the best out there.
Oh, by the way, I normally can't tease this ahead of time, but I can now. I do have Jake Fisher lined up for the end of the week here, who wrote that tanking book, which I'm gonna flip through like this the rest of the week, so I can ask a million questions about that. But also, he's been serving most of the reports this offseason, rumors, that kind of stuff, and he's been really on point so far with a lot of them. So it'll be interesting to see what pans out. He just released his last round of rumors over at Bleacher Report, so we'll talk to him on Thursday at 1 o'clock after all these moves go through here this week, and we'll get to kick around the stuff that happened and maybe more stuff beyond that. So NEEMA, awesome. Everybody else, we'll see you later at 6 o'clock. Going to be a great day. Of course, like I said, subscribe to my Patreon. If you, I'll actually drop it in the chat right here. If you want to check out my Eastern Conference off-season preview, I just dropped that in the chat. $5 a month. You get a lot of good stuff over there, especially at Summer League. Like, I'm going to put a lot of exclusive stuff, I think, out of Summer League over there on the Patreon. $5 a month. You get these off-season guides, probably some exclusive videos, Q&As, interviews with people. Of course, I've interviewed Darren Neesmith and others, and hopefully I'll have some more exclusive interviews coming up in the coming months and such over there. So just a great way to support my career as I keep trying to figure it out here and cover the NBA.
Gotta support Bob. Bob. Everybody go support Bob.
Appreciate NEEMA being here. Appreciate all of you in the chat. Almost 400 people throughout this. Appreciate the questions and comments and everything else. So we'll be back 6 o'clock. Dome Theory, NEEMA, Bobby. We will talk to you on Thursday.